So I wanted to talk more theming layer and what I've done in the sleeplessness this week.
I mean, I was going to talk about the storybook stuff.
Oh.
But I'm not first because I'm not ready to be first.
Ah, darn it. I was going to say Nikki has to go first because she keeps...
No, I refuse to go first.
All right. So Nikki goes second. Potter, Chuck, are you guys ready to show something?
Show something.
Unbelievable.
So I could show something that doesn't work if you want me to. No, I was working on a learning record store, making a few elements that tie into that learning record store.
Cool.
And they all work in isolation right now.
Gotcha.
Alrighty. So we're going to go through a couple different layers here. So it's probably going to be excruciating. I'm sorry. But let me pop up this. So this is Physics 10. For Physics 10, we converted it from Gitbook to HAXcms, which we now have a new monorepo that's called HAXcms Tools. That is a CLI to help migrate Gitbook stuff over to HAXcms. So that is on the Elms Git repo for right now. So looks pretty good. Got to migrate some stuff to our new web components, but works pretty good. So we're pretty happy with it. Now, what we were working on this week was we wanted to demonstrate how we could create services that are deployed alongside these static sites. So one of the popular service that everybody really wants is a learning record store. So a learning record store is something that collects learning analytics. So as a student goes through the course, they interact with elements inside that course. Learning analytics are kicked off and they need to be stored somewhere. So I was playing around with putting together a demo for that. So I made this new tag called LRS Bridge. And what LRS Bridge attempts to do is listen for events that are of type LRS emitter. And so let me actually get another one here that uses it. So there's this other tag that I made called LRS Bridge -HAXcms. And for this, I was, this web component lives inside HAXcms somewhere. And what it does is it attaches to the location change in the store. So anytime you want to listen for the URL changing in HAXcms, you can pull in our store and then using the MobX auto run function, you can listen for changes to the store with store.location. So anytime a location changes, I'm going to get the URL that you're currently on, and I'm going to put together a very simple learning record. So in this case, the verb is you viewed, and the object is this current URL, and then it emits that. And the LRS Bridge collects those statements. And right now it's attempting to put together some type of query to send back to the learning record store, which in this case is a GraphQL server. So if you look at if I pull open the network here, you can see that here, right now I have it wrapping the HAXcms site builder tag, but I have our LRS Bridge HAXcms tag, and I'm pointing to the active GraphQL service backend, so it knows where to send these records. And as I click around, let me pop open the network. filter by XHR. Okay. So as I navigate pages, you should see these posts to localhost 4000. So those are the, that's the LRS bridge. Seeing that statement that was thrown by LRS bridge -HAXcms, and it puts it together into a query, and it attempts to send it to the backend. Right now, it's not quite working because I have some formatting issues that it doesn't care for. But it was working yesterday, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
So first of all, I like the the way you do the disposers with the array.
Oh, right, yeah.
On that first one. If you could paste that in the in general, because I need to steal that.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to create an elegant way of doing that so that I didn't have to keep doing mine. So first of all, you then edited the HAXcms index.html in order to put your wrapper on top of it.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
So if I look in index.html, I have this LRS bridge -HAXcms, and I just wrap that around everything.
So you should look at the, trace the way that HAXcms site builder figures out its backend, because I think you could use a similar methodology both for injecting the bridge, because it would be better for us to inject the bridge as opposed to actually edit the HTML, and then also for the backend aspect, so that you could I think we should really chart out how to do this, and do this with Fusco too, is just what is enough of an abstraction layer as far as the naming of these things, even, so that when we get to okay, so you have this working toxic GraphQL, sweet. What if someone wants to use GrassBlade? What if someone wants to use what the heck's a learning locker, right? Mm-hmm. Create an abstraction layer there, which HAXcms does decently well with the backends concept. So I'd look at that for injecting those, but also if there's a way, can you go to the where you had the emitter?
Yeah.
Where you were actually firing the events.
So this is an emitter.
Gotcha.
Or actually,
oh yeah, okay, yeah.
It is an emitter. I should probably rename it.
So so that record statement piece.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if we just had an object that did that, we could pass around a learning analytic object or class that would have that, and then try to keep it as abstracted away even from XAPI as possible.
Yeah.
So that, and I'm trying to think what the best way to do that would be. Even though I don't personally believe in the caliper standard, doesn't mean that we should make an opinionated decision like that this deep in our platform.
Yeah. Totally.
So having some type of abstract, that's the thing. I don't know. I don't actually know that would make any sense even. So, because you could always take XAPI statements and translate them into caliper.
Yep.
So maybe I'm gonna backtrack on that. So XAPI is, you got verb, object, and there's two other high level partials to the statement, right?
There's result, there's extensions.
Yeah, what was that high level though, the very top one?
Those are the three main ones.
All right, so you got actor, verb, object, and you always will have those three, right? There's nothing else?
I mean, result is a high-level object as well.
Oh, okay.
As well as context.
All right, so what I was thinking on that, if you go back over to your code there, maybe if we had, because then I'm trying to think how could we make this an object that sits in the DOM that you also could use in the imperative form. If instead of if record statement wasn't something you called directly, but that you kind of were able to set the actor, set the verb, set the object, the results, the context kind of independently. Because then I think it might be easier. It would be a lot less code you'd be writing, right? As opposed to that JSON blob. But then we could also do things like, all right, the page loads, HAXcms has some implication of who the actor is. And so now you're no longer setting that. It's just kind of a global. And it'll also probably help us abstract the verb definitions, because I feel like we would want a common list of verbs and then to just call that word as opposed to writing that schema every time. Yeah. From writing schema for LN's implementation of it, I can tell you that it's a total pain in the butt, and no one wants to write it. Even it's so weird. Like, it's not really that hard. It's just obnoxious because you have to make sure that it matches every single time. Otherwise, you don't have relational data. Yeah. Did you get that or look at that app local storage thing that I sent you guys right before we start recording?
The KV one?
No. It's a web component. Chat on here, video chat on here. Let me find it. It's app storage. Whoops. There you go. Paste it in there. So you can open it up. So I was looking, because Fusco and I were talking about this, as far as like, so that there's context for those that don't just stalk me on Twitter. I feel like I stumbled upon a possible data visualization paradigm with the latest version of HAXcms that just tracks page views, but it works offline now because it's using local storage for it. So what I was thinking is, if we tracked everything locally, we could start to set up the option where the data never leaves the user. So if you want to start talking data integrity, it would certainly help if I'm on a train and I go to a bunch of pages and that stuff is tracked and those XAPI statements are fired, but they actually reside on my phone's local storage. So that then when I get internet access again and we want to give all of our data away to the glorious institutional overlords, that then a single message can be fired up. It has one of those. Or it just never fires at all and the data is for the user. But I think this element or something like it could maybe help with that. If you look at the IndexedDB mirror, oh yeah, you have it up right there. That paradigm of like the Iron Ajax call doing a two-way data bind to the IndexedDB mirror could be pretty powerful, because then if your LRS bridge isn't online because it did some test and said, oh crap, we're offline, then it can still make sure that all that data is tracked in the same way. Maybe set a flag saying, oh, statements were generated but not actually recorded in the official source. So that then at a later point in time when it does come online, it can cycle through IndexedDB records in that persistent data set and go, oh yeah, they did go to these 20 pages.
Yeah, I like that. I like that that design, because that way, like any of the bridge elements that you make can just depend on this like local queue being there. It doesn't have to worry about catching the events and sending them to a backend.
And something Bill and I talked about, Nikki, is the idea of if there was a like, your emitter that you have, Potter, if we had like a tracking -beacon tag, and that the tracking beacon tag works kind of like the OER schema tag, where it's pretty much a non-visual tag. Like it does do something, right? But it's not really visual. That you could place the tracking beacon in the DOM via HAX, and then in the HAX editing thing say, basically have abstractions of XAPI statements like viewed, right? And so they'd select from a drop down, like, I want to know that the user viewed or got to this point in the page, hit save, and it injects that tracking beacon in there. Save the content, user comes through, they're scrolling through, and that emitter notices via intersection observer that it's been made visible, fires the event. We capture it in the same way. But then when you're in an editing state with Hax, do some kind of just overlay that just kind of like dotted outlines it and says like there's a data emitter here or something.
Yeah, I was trying to think how best to implement that. If we put them on the page level within HAXcms, or like the layout level, because something like viewed page, it would need to be on every single page, right?
Yeah, but so I think it could be, I think maybe that would be like a setting at the system level almost, to be like, do you want to track every page or something? Mm-hmm. And then if the site builder disables that, then we don't track every page. But Bill, because I showed Bill the little checkbox visualization, which is super overkill. But I was also, he was like, you know, it is good to know, like maybe that you went to everything in this lesson, which if we have statements from everything, we could then add, you know, extract that meaning from it to go, oh, you went to all 10 pages. Cool. We said the more critical thing, especially for like if it's leading up to a quiz or something, right? Mm-hmm. And then maybe when you structured that lesson, you put critical points that basically have the answers, right? But that it's kind of like self-checks, or there's a video that, you know, 10 minutes into the video is the answer to something that I have set as a learning objective. That then if you put an emitter that's like, hey, track what to track. Oh, the video just below me, and make sure they get to 10 minutes in. That then you would have evidence that they actually experienced the thing in question, mm-hmm. which is much more contextually powerful than just like, yeah, you went to the page, because I don't actually know.
And then at some point you could visualize that for the student as well, that they could go back and look at how their work, their performance directly maps to the activities that they might not have spent enough time with. I used to do that manually as a classroom teacher, where the questions on the quiz lined up with certain assignments that they did or didn't complete, so they could see exactly, all right, these pieces directly related to this assignment that you didn't complete. Yeah. And they could very much see that so that they could adapt their behavior for next time.
So, and I mean, now I know, Potter, what are you doing all this data collection for?
For the learning record source?
Yeah.
For a few different things. One is to give instructors real-time insight into how the self-checks, how the students are performing self-checks, because a lot of them are using the self-checks as a pre-lecture assignment, just to get everybody sort of on a baseline. And that's valuable information leading into a lecture. There's also, like, a few faculty have talked about automated messages of like weekly emails saying, you know, hey, some students are, you know, falling behind in a course, you know.
Gotcha.
That's a possibility.
So might I propose a way that we can actually get there? Because mm-hmm. we've had those lofty goals for like 3 years, and we've had all the tracking capabilities and none of the visualizations. And as Fusco says, no one gives a crap unless people can see pretty pictures,
right?
Charts. So what if the entire intention was that data doesn't go, I mean, it does go somewhere else, like, I'm not saying stop what you're doing, but that it's always stored in local storage. And then we're always just trying to build almost like an Xbox Live, how am I doing dashboard, that is a single element that just reads off of the data local and then tries to formulate those opinions. Because I think until it does that, you're never going to be able to correctly abstract it for that next level. It's almost like if you make that then doing the overview for the instructor off of data from a bunch of places is easier. And then data mining to do the email you know, about people falling behind is possible. But if you don't have that like immediacy of, hey Billy, great job, there were 10 things you could have omitted and you unlocked the achievement of finding all the things in this, or whatever that is. That we'll get into the 1.8 million records issue that we had before, where we just have data everywhere and it's meaningless.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's solving two different problems, but
So
yeah, maybe.
well, what are the different problems?
Well, one is student-centric, one is instructor-centric. You're storing everything locally on students' laptops doesn't really do anything for the instructor.
True.
Yeah.
But if you have that visualization, then we can repurpose the same visualization for the instructor dashboard. It's like we've constructed meaningful things for the individual, and then so a paradigm that Dr. Chuck had, I noticed in his Sugi stuff, is that he'd take all these records and then like take this, he had this sampling equation basically that would like take those 10,000 records generated in a week and smash them down into like a data point. And it just kind of kept like recycling through that. If we start at the individual, we could almost smash all that into a data point of like, hey, they actually completed all these things. And then emit that like meta event, which would then make an instructor dashboard a bit easier instead of having to manufacture data off of everything.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sold on the smushing the data thing, because like if you want to do any like if you want to do anything like going back historically and trying to analyze the data for something that you didn't know what you wanted right off the bat, like any sort of research, you're going to need all the raw data instead of smushed data points. I don't know.
So maybe we should have Rick on one of these if we can get the times to line up. Because, sorry, when I say smush, I just mean like then there's a meta point. Because you're not actually getting rid of the other data.
Yeah.
So like Rick's learners go through after they hit what equates to like a meta record to indicate like, I know now how to correctly count medicine or whatever that thing. I know how to correctly label pills, which could be a meta analysis of like, you went to these 6 things and took this learning activity.
Yeah.
Then it makes it easier for him to build a dashboard just tracking that meta data point.
Yeah, right.
So I don't think they're radically different, but
yeah,
I mean, I think we should probably sit down and figure out what the language that we want to use as far as like the way these things are named, whether we're using IndexedDB or that Polymer element, like those types of things. If we can get that stuff down, the other stuff I think is rather trivial.
Yeah. Cool.
You got anything else broken?
I mean, I could show you the Prisma stuff, but it's well, I'll show it to you real quick. So the back end is written in Prisma. Service.
While you're typing that, you also never showed the UI for WCFactory.
Oh, yeah.
I should probably put that in video form here so that we can all go same time.
Just to show you real quick, this is Prisma is like a database ORM, which is like an abstraction layer. I don't know what that message was.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Which is an abstraction layer on a database. So like Prisma is saying, all right, tell me your data model and I'll build you a server, and I'll build you like this little GraphQL server that sits in front of this server. It's pretty powerful. So this is an example of how easy it is that Prisma makes it to build a backend server. Basically just say like, okay, I want to store statements, and statements have these two properties, and I run a few commands and it builds a server for me.
So this is kind of like sales then?
Yeah, it's kind of like that approach. So by doing that, now I can make these queries against statements. I can create statements, and I said there's also real-time subscriptions with Socket.io that
Nice.
It just builds for you. So if I wanted to make this more complex and add just a ton of different relations, so breaking out statement instead of just a blob into more relational data, I sort of convert it to these different types, and then I go into the Prisma folder and I run Prisma deploy. Prisma deploy will migrate my current database to this new format. So it creates all these new tables, and it tries to migrate any data that you have, and then it generates all these like bindings so that you can use these in other systems. Like it creates a Prisma client. So this is like an SDK that it just makes for you. So you can pull those into different backend projects. So now if I start up my GraphQL server, and if I refresh this, then you'll see a totally new schema here with all these mutations that are available for you. So it's super powerful.
So this is how you're gonna build the HAXcms Node.js backend, and then we're gonna put it in a desktop app, and it's gonna take like a week.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're gonna replace all of my complex PHP logic with this. Right?
With the one unfortunate part, not unfortunate, but thing with Prisma is that it runs in Docker. So I can't put this in like an Electron app or something like that. But
Why?
What's that?
Why?
I mean, you definitely could. If you needed a database, you could just specify like you also need Docker to run this application.
I mean, so could you? Yeah, but I'm pretty sure you can package all that type of other crazy crap into it. But so would this be useful for like validating a data model then? Like, does it, I see you have unique there.
Yeah, definitely. You could, I mean, so the confusing thing about this is like you still need another server that sits in front of this server. That's something that trips a lot of people up. So
okay, yeah, that was gonna be my next question.
There's two GraphQL servers running right now. One at 4000, which is my gateway server that I built, and the other one that's auto-generated, which is running at 4466. So, so you could use Prisma to like generate all the different types and use a gateway server, and then you would just be responsible for actually storing that data somewhere.
So it is sort of like sales then. You still needed other stuff. This is replacing MongoDB.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it includes MongoDB. You can use MySQL, Postgres, or Mongo.
I don't know why the heck you would use MySQL if
you had the option. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, GraphQL seems like a natural fit for Mongo.
I mean, actually, Postgres is the most popular one.
What's that? Is it kind of a mix of the two?
Like a mix of the two.
Okay.
I think it does like data blobs pretty well as relational. So whenever you first set up a Prisma server, you can choose between the three.
Cool.
So create a new database, and it sets a bunch of stuff up for you. So you're just providing this schema file, and it does everything else for you.
Sick.
Yeah, so once I get that to work, I'll show it off more. But so WCFactory, WCFactory is getting a little intense trying to do the options really well, like filtering through the hundreds of elements that we have. So doing a UI within a CLI is difficult. So I just put a UI over the CLI, which turns out is a lot easier for web developers to do. So we have the CLI. It's called, you type WCF and you have some commands like starting your factory, building your elements, and installing stuff. So I added a new option, which is a UI option, which this is what Vue.js did with their CLI. They actually just like start up a little web server and run an app for you so that you can do all these operations. And it looks really slick. I put WCF UI, which is probably not going to work because I have a ton of stuff on it. There we go. So it runs a little server. So there's like a little GraphQL server that's running in the back end, and it interacts, the GraphQL server interacts with the CLI itself to run CLI commands and then pipe the output to this little app. So you first get a list of all of your factories. If you click on a factory, as you can see here in the background, it runs a little Lerna command on your behalf to get a list of all the elements inside of a factory. And it lists those out here. So if I was working on accent card, search it, click on it, and then you can do two things. You can open up the project by clicking on the file name. So open it up, and then, yes, it's broken. Okay. And then you can actually, from here, you can start some scripts that are inside of this elements package.json. So if I wanted to do start, I'll just click start, and that will start up the server. As you can see, it's like piping, it starts a child process on your behalf. And then it starts up the server here. So now we work on this accent card. So you can see it's still piping in that output, so it's still running. And it's changing. So this was a lot easier to make than doing the full command in the CLI, which, so it was sort of a no-brainer for me to say, like, I'd rather do this in the front end. That's what we're used to building. So yeah, that's located inside of the Elms repo under the WCFactory mono repo, and it's in a new package that's called UI.
Nikki, you're up.
I now have Storybook and the knobs working in a very, very nice way. So I fell down a rabbit hole of now I'm storybooking all the things. And what I have here is the accent card. I got the select box working. It will actually pull in all the colors we have in our simple colors, which I temporarily broke and then temporarily unbroke that's why I had to go second, just so that I could show this. So I can swap my colors on the accent card here. I can set my accent background color to match. So when I swap the colors out, I can see that with my knobs. I have the slots working, and these, other than it lists them, the slots first, and then everything else is actually listed alphabetically now, which I thought was kind of fun. And then I have, so in addition to the knobs working, I was playing around with how we should structure this, because I definitely see this as a powerful tool for pattern libraries. And so I've created pattern library versions of these without knobs. And that one's image is broken right now. But you can see what I was trying to do is break it down into atoms, molecules, etc. And try to use this as a pattern library structure for ourselves. But I definitely wanted knob versions. So I'm trying to figure out what we like as far as the structure in Storybook. I thought, having a pattern library at the top and then having these, having the actual documents on each element with the knobs separately and listing those specifically by their names so that it's easier for us to find them as developers would be a workable structure for now, but I'm open to input and then we can change that. Because the other really interesting piece about what I've been doing, is that I've been centralizing the Storybook utilities. And let me blow this. Let me blow this up. So Storybook Utilities is where I've centralized pieces. So there's an add live demo function, and the whole purpose of add live demo is to add to the pattern, or to add to the knobs version. And then there is a piece, this is add pattern, just adds it to the pattern library, runs any replacements we need to make it work in the pattern library. Get bindings, gets the bindings for the live demo. So this is a utility that now all the Storybook pieces run on. So if we need to make any changes to how that's being treated, like adding a select, we don't have to go into to replace that because it's all living in Storybook Utilities. So the old way that we did it, compare working tree to the edits. The old way we did it, all of that lived in a Story.js file, which was a lot of redundancy, and we would have had to change, in every story. What we have now is we call Storybook Utilities, and we're sending creating two different objects, one for the pattern library version and one for the interactive knobs version. And then we're just calling the Storybook utility instances add pattern and add live demo. And that's what creates those now.
Where do you call those from? Are they still called from the Story.js file that's in each element, or?
So Storybook Utilities is called from the Story.js file, and Storybook Utilities is actually its own element now. So if you look, I have Storybook Utilities that sits right here. And so all of them are now calling Storybook Utilities. Nice.
So in the, let's say the accent card, you didn't have to provide a Storybook.js file inside that element, or did you?
So accent.js, I'm still providing a story.
Okay.
But I don't, all the functions that determine the knobs or do the replacements from the live demos are now centralized.
Gotcha.
So
Nice.
because there's still a level of customization that might be required for these, and that's what led me to centralize this stuff. Is if you take a look at, let me see if I can find the Alley Media Player story. First of all, there are a ton of custom files that have to run replacements.
Mm-hmm.
And since that is unique to the element, I kept that part in the building of this object. And then when we call the pattern library, it gets all the custom replacement information that's unique to Alley Media. There might be some custom slots, so they might vary on what their slots are. And so I can also send slot information to be bound.
Nice.
Yeah. And some of them I don't want as knobs. So if there are attributes that I don't want as a knob that would be set up, I have a separate spot to, set up unbound attributes. And unbound slots, there's another spot in the object for any slots that you don't want bound within the knobs. Accent card, has images, so that one was kind of custom. And I wanted to add select boxes. So I, have extra logic to say, instead of making this particular thing, be a string that they could put anything in, change the type to a select box.
Mm.
So anything that was unique to that particular element actually now lives in the story file. But the functions that are the same for everything, like, oh, go through the properties and figure out what I need, or, oh, create this demo and run a replacement, all of that central.
Nice.
Yep. And if we have time, we can, if we have time to skip to the end, I'll show what I was doing with the Chartist stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking this entire section that you have and sending this over to Dak Moore from the OpenWC project, and Cass and Kendall from Red Hat, because they're gonna freak out. Dak Moore also took the concept that I had before that you then abstracted upon, and he abstracted upon it and put it in OpenWC. So OpenWC is getting really good. There we go. So yeah, OpenWC is really taking off pretty quickly. This is, I believe now we have OpenWC's Storybook stuff baked into ours. That's where our base Storybook configuration comes from. Previously, I was setting everything up. So it's getting really good as far as like, here's the best ways to build stuff. Here's how to use Rollup to build. Here's how to use Webpack to build. Here's how to demo your stuff, how to publish. I mean, it's really coming along pretty quickly. Here's different ways of doing testing and linting. So I would highly recommend anyone watching this, whether it's us or tuning in, to roll through that and take a look. It's getting really good. All right, so I was going to show theme layer abstraction. I might have fixed that one issue too. So let's see, storage. Hey, look at that. It's Dr. Charles Severance's course that I made. So what I've been doing is I have been opening up a series of tabs here. And so I'd like, go to the Grav CMS website. And I'm starting to say, how could I build this in HAXcms? Not Grav itself, but the Grav website. Like, what are the common features between this and like PY4E, which is just a really simple bootstrap course. So right, there's pages, you go to them, content loads, previous and next navigation buttons, button to get back to everything. Grav has pages. Let's stick to the home page. Pages, I scroll down, it's got something that's keeping track of state up here, and it's jumping me to material. And then I get all the way to the bottom, and I have like, I go back up to the top, right? So trying to quantify what those commonalities are. WordPress.org's website, which is a train wreck, has top level links here for no reason, nesting under support. Themes, which you immediately can start to just pay people. Mobile, don't know why that's even mentioned anymore. It should just happen. How to get involved, which should be the first thing. And of course, hosting. So this has these, top level links, squares that indicate how to get back up to stuff. Everything pretty much has one of these type of footers. So like, what are those pieces as fundamental building blocks? Not the way they're designed. I'm not touching the way things are designed at the moment. OERschema.org, same thing, right? This is a fork of the Bootstrap theme. Name of the site in the corner, navigational items. Okay, so what I have come up with as a result of that is, let me go to HAXcms. Okay. There we go. I just did a rebuild recently, so it'll take a second to load said assets. Okay, so I've got my PY4E. Let's go to the Apereo webinar because I did that one. It's a different theme. This theme didn't exist last week. Let's open up BTO Pro. Let's open up Hacks the Web. And then let's open up, maybe not a new site. Sure, a new site, whatever. And then I think a new site is a legitimate one. Some of these are there. Okay, yeah, it's legitimate. All right, so there we go, BTO Pro. So now the BTO Pro theme here, this is called Simple Blog. Simple Blog has an Atom feed and an RSS feed. So for one, now HAXcms is automatically generating valid Atom 1.0 and RSS 2.0 data feeds on every page update. But that's the minor thing. The important thing is this button. So we'll start with that button. So that button is a site-RSS- button next to another one, which then type Atom and type RSS, net us the difference between these, right? And it's just very basic abstraction. We've been doing these for quite a while. So let's look at why I would point to that silly thing there. So let's go to site pieces, an RSS button. So as you can see over here, let me close that part. So this is now, everything is starting to take place under this HAXcms elements. And I've actually started to break it out into, last night I went and refactored everything. So we've got under the lib directory, we're starting to build these out into kind of like a CMS type theme layer structure, because I've really built up the theme layer in the last week. So you can see development, we have our dev theme and we have a theme developer, which are two different things. Show that one too. There's core elements, which are abstracted away. There's backends, right? So there's Beaker, Demo, PHP, eventually we'll get Node.js. And then there's core themes. So two core themes at the moment are the slide theme, the basic theme. And then let's find under theme directory, there's all these pieces that I'm starting to make. And so you can see these are broken out into active pieces, blocks, navigation, query, and site pieces. So I'm not entirely sold on the names, like we can totally change these, but the point is anything that's under here this is pieces of UI that have to do with what is currently active. So the design pattern that I think is going to make our theming both trivial and amazing is breaking everything into these little components that have this prefixing. So we've got site name, site active title. Site active title has all of the state encompassed in it. And so all site active title is involved in is, if I go to like this blog post, let me click, that has article title there, blog post, right? So that one's actually just in the page. So you don't have to use them, the different site pieces. However, let me find one that uses it because has so many themes now. That one's just in the DOM. Where are you? I know P4E does. Okay, so if I inspect that word, it says instructor. There we go. Site active title. So all site active title is involved in is just making sure that that updates. So the beautiful thing from the designer's perspective is they put this SDS tag, as I'm referring them to now. So this initiative I'm calling So Damn Semantic. And so the So Damn Semantic initiative, because I like just saying So Damn Semantic over and over again, is so damn semantic that all a designer will have to do is place the intentionality and design the intentionality, and they'll get state for free. So see how that says lessons, instructor, login. There is nothing in the theme layer associated with state management at all. It's all compartmentalized into the individual components. So this theme, basic theme, if we look at basic theme, does a beautiful thing. It has no MobX integration. MobX and the store have been completely abstracted into all of the elements. There's also now HAXcms theme mixin, so that makes sure that all of the larger concepts are put in place in this like super class. So the theme wiring, so that this theme is registered as being a valid HAXcms theme. Things like edit mode, active item, manifest, you know, all the pieces that we need in order for this theme to just kind of magically work, even down to whenever active ID changes, the theme ensures that the content is visible. So that then all the disposers, as Potter showed before with the auto run stuff, are just automated. So yes, you do need these to do a theme, but now, and then I'll switch it over to his really elegant array method for these. Now all of this just happens. So this is ensuring that the data model is kept in sync so that, you know, when page title gets updated, page title is calculated automatically based on active ID changing. So following pattern Potter told me to use, which makes total sense, is anyone that updates active ID is in effect triggering everything else to change. So all of the other values that can be are calculated, like page title, for example, is calculated in the store. But the beauty for a themer, going back to this basic theme, is this theme that makes up this site is currently like 70 some lines of CSS and like 14 lines of HTML or something. It's trivial.
So the bulk of your lines are where you actually want them as a themer.
Yes. So this theme successfully now has 0 JavaScript. It is just the template, just importing things. And yes, I realize this is JavaScript for those that are going to hear me say that outside of our group, but there is no JavaScript logic in the theme itself. It's pure design at this point. So
Collins wouldn't have to mess with any of the JavaScript and be able to design his own themes.
I mean, let's be honest, Collins couldn't mess with the JavaScript at this point. But beyond that,
JavaScript for you.
Yeah, beyond that, Nikki and every people from Red Hat are going to love our just abuse of CSS variables. So what I've done with these is these elements are basically just in charge of state and very minimal HTML structure. So if you hated Drupal divitis, you're not going to get it here. So let's go to like the site title, for example. And so site title does pull in the store and MobX, right? So all of the state of the title is inside the title element itself. So then the title, you'll see, is just super minimal JavaScript, right? Or sorry, HTML structure. But then what I'm doing is for every piece of HTML structure, I'm doing an apply mixin, and I'm doing almost no HTML, or CSS assumptions made ahead of time. Occasionally, I have to override something, but then everything can always be undone via via the applies. So then site title just has site title and home link. The MobX store ensures that site title.
These little pieces then are essentially almost like semantic pieces that are dumb with respect to data and presentation.
Yes, they are so
They're
damn
entirely semantic.
It's the appropriate way to call it, Nikki, is so damn semantic. That's I won't actually.
So can we naming suggestion, that folder that's called theme, so that people don't get in and edit theme, could we call that like semantic pieces or SDS or something of that nature? And even instead of prefixing site, it would be whatever we call that theme.
So, no.
Why not?
Because these are just kind of like the core theme layer. You don't edit these and you don't fork these.
Right.
So like, for example, if you wanted breadcrumb links, you would implement our site-breadcrumb, reference site breadcrumb, and then just write CSS to style it.
All right, so it bothers me that the folder for that is called theme, because if I'm a person and what I want to do is theme, it makes it feel like that is where somebody would work to create themes. I know you, and because you have a folder called themes in core, these aren't technically themes, these are actually components.
I understand why you're saying that, but I think until you actually would build one, right? Because you're making a design, you're a designer, and you'd say, oh yeah, I want the site title there.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't say, I want the UI pieces title there. You see where the...
We also need to name prefix these appropriately.
So let's look at what they
They're all
are.
prefix site, so site UI would even make better sense.
I'm just wondering why a human being would say out loud, I want to put the site UI title there.
Right.
That's my, where I'm...
Okay, but then why do we have site at the beginning of each of those?
Because I can't just name it breadcrumb.
So UI breadcrumb, and then be like, I'm going to go into UI to find my UI pieces.
I mean, I get the UI pieces part. I guess I'm not following why, if I'm making this, so like I do get you on this. So if I said UI pieces, right, it would look like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then theme actually would kind of make sense for that, because that's the wiring where I can put them just in core or something. So then there's these UI pieces, and then I'm style. So like in my CSS,
Mm-hmm.
how is that not?
Oh, gotcha. So that's site-wide breadcrumb.
Yes.
Site-wide top menu.
Yeah. So I'm saying like that. Then if it said like UI or even site UI top menu, like it just doesn't seem.
Okay.
Like I'm the one making the interface. I'm aware it's a UI at that point.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But I definitely would be happier if that folder name theme was not.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I wasn't
Other
really
pieces
sold on. I wasn't really sold on theme. I was just like, I need to put these in something so I can refactor it to be theme. But so the basic theme is, let's see, what is this? 26 to that. So it's 18 lines. So what I also, part of why I've been doing this, right? So because we're making courses, right? Or this thing is for making courses and little student portfolio sites and things, is I feel like if I have enough variety in use case, we can start to have that like language conversation around this, right? To say, okay, what the heck is this thing over here? Well, it's the off canvas menu. Like, okay, is that what a designer would call it? Because if it is, then maybe we should have like a UI - off canvas piece or something, right? versus, you know, the buttons versus, I went through several name iterations on like this. Like, what would you call a thing that triggers the user interface to move to the next page in a sequence? I mean, you could just call it next button, but it's not really next button. It's a menu button. Well, it's a very specialized type of menu button.
Right.
So what those end up being, and that one's used the most across them. So like in slide theme, you can see it, is that is site menu button. And so then reading this, I go, oh yeah, I need my website needs a menu button. Now we could then, you know, truncate that and just be menu button. Part of why I was thinking of keeping this in site is as well as like, we want to make sure we have at least some name spacing so we don't run into potential collisions with other things we would potentially adopt, but that's a lesser concern. So if we look at site menu button in our slide theme, that is, I need a site menu button. The type is previous. The label to put on it is the word previous. And I need you to position the label on top of the item. And so if I go to, okay, that one's local and I don't care about this site. So let's switch the theme on this. All right, switch it from the Learn theme over to Slide Deck. So that same button that was over here that then had the position over to the left is the identical button as this one. And so then I've used color and positioning and CSS to manipulate how this is presented, but all of the state still takes place within that button. On BTO Pro, or the blog theme, I go to our code review from before, we can see that is actually the same button. So this goes to the previous post. There's the scrolling back up to the top being triggered based on context changing. You can see that this is over to the side, but it is fundamentally the same button. And so using this paradigm of not a lot of HTML in the thing, where is that? So that's a navigation menu button. So not a ton of HTML in the thing. And then doing these apply blocks on literally everything. So you see the only CSS implication that this starts with is like, you know, set a decent transition, set, you know, something with disabled state, unset this design implication with the paper button itself, because min width is annoying. And then you can see you can still leverage, you know, things like paper tooltip, so that in this case, you can say site menu button tooltip background color, and you can influence the paper tooltip in a consistent way. And then this has the accessibility considerations just baked into it at that point. There's also then a prefix and a suffix slot, which I did something interesting with in the top menu. I'll show in a minute. So yeah, I've been abstracting all of this down so that then when you actually make a theme, you're really just writing CSS. So again, this is the slide theme, this is like the menu button and the title, because this is a really minimalist theme. And then just uses CSS variables and the apply block, which is a Polymer specific thing, but it's incredible. So you don't have to write a million different potential selectors. So that is what I've been doing with the theme this week, is chunking these out into all these different pieces. The top menu sends us down a rabbit hole that is totally worth mentioning. So top menu, let's look at the active title. Oh, there's a UI thing in the way and an overlay. Learn to, nope, go away. Dev theme. I want that basic theme. Okay. So basic theme says site top menu. And site top menu is the top menu on any website. So let's go to one of those. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is the site top menu. Site top menu automatically has everything that doesn't have a parent at the top. That's what a top menu is. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Okay. Now, this side menu, what we see there, so let's see what the functional UI pieces are. So we've got top menu. This is the breadcrumb trail. This is the active title. And then this is, let's see, it's called like, it's under blocks. It is site children block. Okay. And so site children block is listing the children of whatever's active. Breadcrumb is building out based on the active trail. So I can go back to lessons, I can go to functions, I can go to lessons. But notice that lessons is set correctly here. So even if I were to go to conditional execution and hit refresh, this is my test space, you'll see lessons is correctly selected. This is kept in sync, and I was exactly where I needed to be state-wise. So this is largely made possible based on the fact that we now have our own version of views in our system. So there is site query menu slice, and site render query. And site render query is a little buggy, unfortunately. But what these three do is just make everything so stupidly easy. So here's site top menu. We've got some CSS. We've got support for things like sticky. We've also got different types of indicators. So if you wanted a line indicator versus an arrow indicator, you just change one setting. So where is that? The UI of Zoom is getting in my way here. So if I were to take that top menu and instead say that it is sticky and that the indicator wasn't an arrow, and we'll get rid of arrow size and hit save. And then I need to open one up that has that theme. Oh, PY4E, yeah. Oh, good. Okay, so now it works.
Back to the good old days.
Yeah, back to the good old days of last night. Okay, so let's get rid of indicator arrow and let's set this to sticky. And now hit refresh on here. Now, oh, our indicator's a line, but I think it's white. But our thing is, but it's sticky now. Right, so we can start kind of boiling down, removing all of that which was fun to figure out the first time and never the second and third. So let's get rid of those, put it back to indicator arrow, sure. What's going on inside of that site top menu? Looking in top menu here. We've got our indicators, and then this is how it figures out what to show you. So it invokes a site query, and a site query is going to return results, and it takes in sort order and conditionals. And so this is going to do a comparison against the JSON outline schema and the items in it, and then return to me a result that is able to be two-way data bound to anything else. So the way that that top menu is built is this piece right here. So we do the site query, we say order everything ascending, because there's an order, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as far as what page order they are. And then the condition is that whatever I get doesn't have a parent, and then I need you to repeat the items. Mutable data just helps with some data binding. I probably don't need to do that. And then for each of the items, create a link that references the correct title, puts an identifier as far as ID, and has the location. And so this little segment, I could copy and paste anywhere, not have to understand state, but do a pretty advanced query as far as what's going to be generated. Then down in here, I don't think there's even a lot of state management in this. No, we've got a manifest, and we've got active ID, which are mostly used for positioning the indicator. So the breadcrumb trail can do a similar thing, although it does it internal to itself. Breadcrumb is going to go through manifest and walk backwards, build out this pretty basic breadcrumb structure. Site children block uses a different type of query. It uses a query menu slice. And so if the first query was like conditions, like very specific conditions, like you could actually write that a site query. So in that top menu, what is it, site query? I could write an additional condition where this gets really powerful. That would be like metadata dot fields dot tags and then blog, right? Like in what Chuck and Potter started putting together for the ODL site, right? They've got like tags and other things that are in metadata. Well, you could actually filter out dynamically the list of what to deliver you based on, you know, tags. I don't even need parent there, right? So that would give me everything that has in its JSON a tag marked as blog, and then I can render it however the heck I want. What the slice does, it's slightly different, and this is something Drupal had that was really powerful in the menu layer, is I'd say, okay, so again, it bubbles up a result. I'm gonna say start at a certain level, end at another level, and then these are actually optional, but you can say where the parent is this. So how this is different is that start and end, you know, if you think of, it's like a hierarchy, right, of items that are in our JSON array, that I could say, give me parent 25, and then give me levels 2 through 4 as far as depth, so that it would just build and include that part of the substructure. So you could build a very specific block for your very specific theme. Maybe it was only supposed to show the news items. And news items, I know based on my own mental model, are included at like, you know, news, and then under it I have recent, and then I have archive. And I want something that's in that archive, or something, you know, that's down here, post 1, 2, 3, that I could craft a query slice to say, well, where the parent is, I could say news, and maybe news had like item, right? So I could put in where parent is that, say that it's a fixed ID, which is important as far as it tracking state, to say, hey, always show this, and then I want you to start at, so this is 1, 2, and 3. Actually, you know what, I'm gonna say only show things that are 3 deep. And so that query would give you these items every time.
So this is similar how when I was sorting out when I made like that little recent news, like I called it a view on my sidebar, it was without having to do the same JavaScript to sort through all that stuff every time to get those results. I could just do this query slice and grab it. Is that what you're basically saying? Yeah.
So the query slice is important for like menu items. The query itself, this is more like views.
Okay.
Conditions. So you could write a, yeah, you could, I'm trying to make it so you don't have to write any JavaScript in order to do those types of things.
I love you.
Cindy's going to love the archive example.
Yeah.
Because she has a problem to solve with that.
So that is how, when you go to lessons, it's taking a slice here and it's saying, based on what's active, show this. And so that way, when I click Y programs, it's kept it at active, right? But because parent has changed, which is calculated through state, this is now showing the things under parent and there's nothing there. But now when I go back to lessons, it's there. Or when I go to getting started, there's nothing there. So it's pretty awesome. It's awesome. It makes me so happy. I have stinking views. I could go to the HAXcms the website, and let's shift it over to that theme. I haven't done this yet, so let's see what that ends up looking like. So take the HAXcms the web theme and go from a documentation site. Let's go to Learn To first. So this side menu is using the site-menu tag. It's the same tag across the two of them, but it's styled differently, right? And then there's the breadcrumb tag. There's the active title. There's the site title, which if I click site title, goes back to the home page, and click through the next buttons and maintain state perfectly. This thing auto scrolls with me. I can then go and jump to, what was that one? That was basic site. And then basic site pulls the documentation together like this. So under documentation, see, that gets pretty deep. And now I can see the entire structure here. So if I want to learn about HAX development and then WCFactory tooling, now I'm just focused on WCFactory tooling. Go back up to HAX development, see all the other things, App Store. Oh, just within apps is blocks. I didn't test any of this, by the way. I just had a feeling that this would look nice doing it in this so that I can jump around. But you can see the like raw power of what these little pieces net you. That and the fact that this stuff is lightning fast now because state management is so radically simplified because of MobX. This is like the best thing you've ever done, Potter. is get all of our stuff routed over onto MobX.
Good thing we got that recorded.
You mean just violently advocating for it until I broke you down?
Oh, you didn't have to in that. I was like, just pick something. I don't care. So there's our site as slides. Jump back to the home page. The other interesting side effect of this is I'm not going to say, I'm never going to say state management is perfect, but this by me refactoring and cleaning up some stuff that was Potter and I had talked about to get everything onto MobX as opposed to like a bunch of stuff as we were before, it basically cleared up all of the state management issues that we were having across different themes, which is why I can now switch between these so flawlessly. There's also now the developer test theme. Developer test theme has pretty much just all the different pieces and some different techniques on the DOM. And yes, bright green because that's what the color is. Just to help illustrate some of the functional concepts in there, right? Like there's the breadcrumbs. So it's a decent theme to pick apart and know how to do any of these different things. Something else I added, and this is marked experimental for sure. Let's see if it works. So here's the theme. It's empty. That's the whole point. Okay. Then I hit edit and let's delete this. So we have a starting point. Okay. Now I'm going to go to make. I didn't do it. Let's try it in local development. What's that under? Local development is under test. Okay. So I'm going to need to change this theme back or else I'll forget. Let's go with documentation. Okay. Oh, that's lovely. Okay. So close that one, close that, close that. We're just getting started. So I'm going to edit the site JSON and then that'll be perfect. It'll be a half an hour a piece here. So I'm going to edit this to be developer, and then it's like HAXcms theme developer, I believe is the name of it. So that's effectively what's happening when you change the themes. So it's just rewriting that value. It changes all my words around again, don't I, Nikki? Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, it takes a second. All right. So there's nothing going on. Hit edit. Let's clear out what's there in source. All right. Update. Clear. Make. There we go. Okay. So this theme bubbles up HAX wired definitions for the tags that I was just showing you all. So if I want to put our RSS feed button on an interface and make it Atom, then I can place it there. I don't know where it went. It's supposed to be there, but it writes the site RSS button information in there. Then the idea is you could just throw down, oh, I see the UI is actually in the way. Let's throw some placeholders in there. There we go. So this is now getting started link. This is the Atom feed. If I do make for CMS query, I could actually write one in here. So I could do conditions of a CMS query would be like parent, and this is an interesting one. You can do a wildcard and do active ID like that, and then I can sort. We won't sort by anything. We'll display the results as a grid, and then what we're going to render is just a basic link which points to item.location. That I believe has to be $, and then in here do paper-card and close that paper card and close that link, and then inside of this we're going to do item.title. Right, update. Oh, didn't seem to put it in there with the template tags wrapping it appropriately. Oh, it did put the template tags in there. Oh wait, there wouldn't be any results. Idiot. Let's see if that worked. I was writing queries in the UI before. Now, of course, it won't happen because it's a demo here. But it's the crazy world we're trying to make here. Darn it. It was working before, darn it. Oh well. So I was thinking we could then have this like hidden mode basically, and it doesn't save it correctly, obviously, where you could just say like, yeah, give me the menu. There you go. So there's the whole menu. Or any of the other pieces, give me the title of the site. There's the title of our site. And then it says, hey, there's the title. You're basically able to start creating a theme out of thin air using HAX to write the theme for HAX. So obviously experimental, as it says, but I'm going to stop sharing.
So what would you think about like the site menu and everything? What would you think about having just saying anything that does logic, we're not going to put any markup or CSS in it, and we're just going to let you provide your own element to render the results through?
So the render query sort of does that.
Right. Yeah.
So I was thinking, and then the sum of the site, like not breadcrumb's a bad example. Site top menu. All site top menu is doing is that, basically.
Yeah.
What's applying it. So I was thinking is that we'd have, like, if we use that in our own site, elements or whatever, and maybe we do name them something different. I don't know what that would be. But yeah, I think we should be leveraging that approach, minimizing the HTML, allowing people to style it, but then also saying like, oh, you could just do this too. Like,
I see.
Would that achieve this? I know what you're going for. So like, would that achieve?
Without, like, I wouldn't want to fork the element that has the logic in it, right? You'd want to extend it. So, like I was thinking about having, like, if you don't specify one, then it uses whatever our default is for like breadcrumb.
Yeah, breadcrumb's the only, that's the one that definitely started to put some decisions into it that I was going down that route.
Because you wouldn't want to be responsible for like worrying about altering the markup or CSS in a component that does like tons of complex functionality.
Yeah, so I wonder if maybe, because like there's render query, and render query will take whatever you put in the slot and put it in a list, so it just pumps it out based on the conditions.
Yeah.
And render query is honestly a little buggy because iron list gets pretty ticked off that you just put a template tag into it that's not actually its child, it's a child of a parent.
Oh, yeah.
But it still works, it just doesn't update correctly.
Gotcha.
So I wonder though if there's a way that maybe we take some of the, so like was it like top menu, this query is going to be the same every time, right? So if there was a way, like you're saying, to maybe have that we do sort of like this abstraction, it's called something else, it's not called top menu, I don't know what it would be called. Well, maybe it'd be like query, it'd be some query that just automatically gives that, because then you could have it as a mix-in, and then the mix-in would be supplying a results object automatically. Is that what you're you're thinking?
Yeah, you could do that too. I was thinking about doing the putting your template in the slot of these components, but
yeah, let me see if I actually have any of those with the site render query.
I started doing those
I do have one of
a
them.
few, but
so this is
like more work.
This is the so in the dev theme, that hideous green thing, this is how the cards show up.
Mm-hmm.
So site render query, and then the only thing you supply, right? So this is the slot. And then because I didn't pass it any conditionals, it just gives me everything.
Yep.
So do you mean something like?
Yeah, because I totally see like the benefit of packaging visual aspects of it too, because then you could do like what you were saying. I mean, it's so easy to throw in a tag that just says site title, you know, rather than site title and then inside of that H1 $ result, close H1, and then you'd be responsible for your CSS too. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's the best of both worlds. But
well, I think you're trying to have the accountability for us that then when we start building everything on breadcrumb, right, that the query to obtain breadcrumb is sound, and it's not a whole ton of random JavaScript logic, right? It's something you could easily write your own little stupid tag to do.
Right.
I think is a really important concept, because I'm making an opinionated decision here to say, hey, throw an icon in.
Right.
And in the top menu, I attempted to have, I've been trying to do like anything that makes an opinionated decision. So like ink. Ink to me is an opinion, right? Yeah. Then when I click a paper button, it makes a ripple. Yeah. So I then keep that property coming along. So you can say, hey, I don't want ink on the top menu items. And then in every single area, I have, apply mix-ins for like literally every piece of the shadow root. And then the indicator, I made a line and an arrow, but like you couldn't make an indicator that was, I don't know, like a squiggly line or something.
Right.
And top menu only renders the items. It doesn't render the items, and then you hover them and they have children.
Yeah, it like, so you're using the HAXcms theme builder, experimental theme. You click add breadcrumbs, which is you selecting like the breadcrumbs query, and then another selection is what element would you like to render this through.
Yeah, what do you want and part of that could maybe also be like there's a slot for the spacer.
Yeah.
A slot for the button wrapper or link or whatever that is, a prefix slot and a suffix slot to each one of them or something. Yeah. Some of it, which is also like these questions are why I've just been making a bunch of random little themes and trying to emulate pieces of them to say like, what is actually fundamentally different about these. Like, is it purely design? Is it functional? So yeah, I think we'll have to figure out how we chart that course between them. And I'm hoping that if we just have enough things to react to, that we can kind of throw it out there and go like, well, yeah, but I wanted to do like this website. Like, I feel like an inventory of multiple websites, like the breadcrumb thing, I immediately noticed I had a deficiency when I went to Drupal.org, because the new breadcrumb trail in the documentation is just different colored bands of the background. So there's no spacer. The spacer is implied based on the background, which I thought was, I haven't really seen anything do that before, but like you couldn't do that with what I have constructed currently.
Right.
So then there's an opinion. So then it's like, all right, well, do we want the breadcrumb to have a flag that says, get rid of the, item between it? And then that would be solved. And then you write some interesting CSS that lets you target each of the.
Semantically, you'd need some kind of a spacer, even if it's hidden.
Yes.
For people. Oh, actually, no, you wouldn't necessarily semantically. Because semantically, you're probably doing it as an unordered list or an ordered list, right?
Oh, that was yeah. This was the interesting thing I wanted to show you. The top. So at the top, so there's slots in the top bar. There's a prefix and a suffix, and they live in the wrapper, right? So like this is the items, this blob is the items, and then there's prefix and suffix to it. So that you go to, there's this stupid thing, test. So the way that this gets here and shows up in the correct order, or in the dev theme, if you saw a get hacks link that was over here, is I do a slotted target in the wrapper of div.spacing. And so that then the element or the theme implementing this, if it defined like if you've defined a hard link like, hey, get our product or whatever, or click to buy or something silly, that as long as it had a class of spacing and used a div, you know that it would apply the correct styles of the thing in question, so that your theme wouldn't have to attempt to mirror what that is for your element that you're adding in. So I haven't done those before. So I thought it was an interesting capability that would allow, so it still gives you as a theme developer consistency over the items that show up in that bar, even if they were generated by the system versus you forcibly adding a few items. Because like our system doesn't allow you to do links that go to external sources. And then you want to add one in your theme forcibly, you could have it there, but yet be styling in your mind the stuff that's in the top bar. So that theme, the basic theme, I believe took less than 20 minutes to make.
Nice.
These things are just getting stupid, because when the state is abstracted that heavily, there's like nothing going on. It's just style. And then Nikki, I think it would be awesome if in like a week or two, you just made like a silly blog site that you attempted to make look like something, because you're really good at nitpicking CSS selectors to say whether or not you can do something. And so not that the basic theme should do everything, but if there's something you can't make it do, I think that would be, rather telling if you basically forked that theme and made a new copy of it and then attempted to make it look like your own, put your own spin on it. If you can't style something somewhere in it, then that means we're making too opinionated a decision.
Do we have time to do this one last little thing for me, or?
Yeah, it's 11:16.
All righty. I'm going to get back to sharing then. All right. So what you are seeing here is, while I was playing in Storybook and trying to make stories for all the things, I went through and updated the LRN design chart, which basically takes the Chartists library and turns it into a web component, and then we can pull in a CSV file and chartify it. So here we have, you know, we have the bar charts, we have the pie charts and the line charts. But on top of that, while I was in there playing with all the things, and because I was like so excited that I could do a select menu on the simple colors, it now uses our accessible color combinations. So with pie charts, you can see that you can do the, you know, the simple colors light, simple colors dark, simple colors light with accent blue, dark with accent blue.
Oh yeah.
You know, and you can see that in the bar chart form and in line chart form. So that's what I've been working on. With the lines, I think what I might do is change the symbols, since there aren't good labels like there are with, you know, pie has the labels actually on the slices, especially when you start getting into monochrome. But yeah, that's the other thing, that rabbit hole that I dropped down into.
That's awesome.
So there you have it.
Awesome.
So what made me think of it is the idea of visualizing data for students and instructors. And we now have these lovely little things, and we can use the Chartist library.
So does Chartist require you to use CSV, or you just happen to be piping that in?
I happen to be piping it in. I did Chartist render, which is just Chartist as is. LRN design takes a CSV. It could put an option in there where you wouldn't have to identify a data source. But LRN design gives you the simple colors plus this data source. But I could make it an either or.
Well, I was just thinking, you know, that the XAPI data that Potter's emitting is going to be in JSON blobs. If we normalize those JSON blobs stored in IndexedDB or local storage, that then we could use that two-way data binding thing to basically just pipe JSON directly into that. That's been normalized.
You
and
need
then
logic to decide if what we're getting is a CSV or JSON.
Yeah. Because if you could do that, then we could make an element that just sits there that you click and monitor and actually just watch the statements you're generating assemble stuff, which would be great for us testing things.
Yes, which means I could go back to the progress donut I did for Studio and leverage all of this. It's basically just taking Chartist, making a donut that animates around and
yeah. Have you guys seen the progress donut she made? Why don't you put that up, because this is really
all right.
It's really cool.
Yep.
So progress donut, before I broke it, is actually a little circle that makes its way around to show a % complete, and it can be segmented into pieces. So those could be lessons or they could be topics. And this was originally for a studio project, so it would be like somebody's profile image and then showing how far they progress. And normally when I'm not breaking it, it's animated and works its way around in a circle.
Yeah, I think I did see that. It's cool.
Yeah, I do have to go back and fix it, but as and so in fixing things, I'm also breaking them and then fixing them again. So that's it.
Cool. Oh, I also made the worst thing on the internet. I forgot. Oh yeah. A whole page, just a whole page of auto counting up elements.
Web crimes.
But, you know, every silly little like project portfolio overview thing has something like this.
If you're going to make really bad stuff, you should make marquees too. Scrolling marquees.
Well, the fun thing with it is, one, it's using the count up library, so it's minimalist on code. And it's using intersection observers, which I've never used before. I don't know if any of us have used intersection observers. There we go. So an intersection observer is basically charting out like how far of the scroll threshold you are through the element itself being visible in the user's browser. So it's really useful for like lazy loading and stuff. So that's how it doesn't start counting until you cross the threshold of like seeing at least 50% of whatever the thing is. So while I don't care for a animated count up thing, I thought I knew I would need to figure out in order to do that so I could repurpose it. So the intersection observer, if you need an example, you can steal one from there. Good for lazy loading or for your animated charts, I would think, Nikki, so that once you get to, like, if it's down the page in the UI, so when you scroll to it, then it does the animation. Same type of deal.
And looks like Safari is going to get Animation Observer in the near future.
Animation Observer or Intersection Observer?
Intersection Observer.
Oh, I thought that was everywhere. Is it really not?
Looks like 70% of all traffic has it.
Huh, I did not know. No, it's in the Safari Tech Preview. Huh, I didn't notice that. I think there's a polyfill for it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Good call. Maybe that's what I was thinking. I was like, everything supports this because I read some article, but I'm finding Google now just puts out articles and says like, this is where the web's going. And that's kind of a little dangerous, even though the direction has been pretty decent.
Yeah.
Which that modules thing, I don't know. Did I send you all the modules article?
Yeah, Chuck and I were talking about it.
Oh, okay. Did you read that, Nikki? I think I sent it to you in a bulk with a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, geez. I can't remember if you have.
It's just like, it says like, Kate, here, I'll pull it up on the screen here. It says KV storage, the web's first built-in module. And so it's talking about like, hey, local storage is slow, and like, here's where the web is. And then, oh, by the way, we built a module. And what's so interesting with this module, so it's an ES module you can import. It just comes from your file system. Like that they've just baked that functionality directly in. And while normally I would say like, oh, great, Google is implementing a thing only Google uses. It then says like, well, here's how you would polyfill not having that library. And it uses, there it is, an import map. So I don't know, are import maps supported everywhere yet? I didn't look that part up. I don't even see it. It doesn't show up in can I use. But if everything starts to understand this, I think it's a very interesting world they would be pushing towards, where it's like, oh, well, deliver it locally if it is there. And then, right now, I think that could have big implications. Like, if there was something in NPM that would take, MobX or Redux or any of these things that are pretty darn agreed upon, like this is the way people build applications. If there was a way to almost like cache that in your browser itself, then it could try and hit that first and then fall back to a compiled location or something. So
yeah, you could see like an actual standard for state management being worked on by the community. Yeah.
And then still have fallbacks to use, what made me think of that being relevant was that what I liked in that little app storage thing that the Polymer example is that is an abstraction on the core API, so that then you could swap out the core API, like local, like session storage versus local storage, which seems trivial, or versus IndexedDB or versus send to a server. But you could have GDRP implications as to why to use one versus the other. Like I could detect that you're in a location that you shouldn't be storing data, you shouldn't be sending data back to the server. And so then we'll redirect this OER storage emitted event and send it just to session storage, because then it isn't in violation of the policies of where you are. I can still give you visualizations as a learner, which is also where I was going down the train of thought with that, like visualize everything locally and then put in a mechanism that would send that back, because then you could pump OER out that is one-to-one identical to what students on campus leverage, and then do a detection like, is this content framed into Canvas? Okay, then we're safe to actually collect the analytics off of this, or the analytics are relevant then.